Alright, so this is the review for Systems 2 test, take 2. So here we go. So we'll work through the test, and I'll tell you guys little tips and tricks that I kind of have found and have seen, so that whenever you guys are taking the test tomorrow, hopefully you get through it a little bit faster, and you get through it with a little bit less hassle as we work through these problems. Alright, so we start with number 1. Number 1 says, what is the value of x in the solution for the system, and they give you the system. Alright, so here, one thing that I want to point out straight away is that they are only interested in the x value. So usually we answer our oh, didn't realize it was so out of focus. Come on. So one thing that I realize immediately right off the bat is usually our points or our answer are in point form. In this case, they are only worried about that x value. So we do not really need that y value. Okay? So what that means with our variables is when we're looking to cancel out one of our two variables, let's cancel out the y's because we're not even interested in the y's. Let's just cancel out the y's, then we'll be left with x's, and it should be just a one-step problem. Alright, so to cancel out my y's, I'm going to go ahead and put parentheses around the top. Usually we just try to add them together first. That should be your first step. If not, then look at your smaller number and then ask yourself, can I multiply that by something to get that bigger number? Which right now my bigger number, my bigger y, is negative 4y. So to cancel out a negative 4y, I need a positive 4y. So I can multiply 2 by positive 2. If I do that, then 2 times x gives me 2x. 2 times 2y gives me plus 4y, and that's what I needed to cancel it out. Then I have equals 2 times negative 10 gives me negative 20. Now if I add these together, that's exactly what I wanted to happen. Negative 4y, positive 4y, these are going to create a zero pair. Draw my line down my equal sign. Negative 3x plus 2x is going to give me negative 1x equal to, and then 9 plus negative 20 is going to give me negative 11. And now my last step to get the x completely by itself is going to be to divide by negative 1. And so I get that x is equal to 11. Alright, and again, they only want my x value, so I'm done at that point. Of course, I could have canceled out my x's, but if I did that, then I would have canceled out my x's, found the y, which I don't need, then I would have had to plug the y back in and then find x. So it's just adding steps to it. So if they're only looking for one value, then cancel the other value out and then work it out. That's just going to help you go a little bit faster on the test. It's also going to help you kind of conserve your brain power a little bit. Alright, number 2. Number 2 says, what is the most efficient method for solving the system? Explain your answer in the box provided. Alright, so really when you're solving these, really you can say either one as long as you tell us why you chose that system or why you chose that method. Of course, there is one right off the bat. If I just look at these two equations, they're set up for linear combination. So if you circle linear combination, you would say something like, because they're both in standard form. One thing is, and this problem kind of shows up on your test, you could say something like they're both in standard form, and that would give us enough to know. You can also say like the x's line up, the y's line up, the numbers line up, or I can add the equations together, or maybe even do like 1 or 2 steps of it. If you wanted to say graphing or calculator, you would have to say something like, so if you chose this or this, then you would have to say something like, I would solve both equations for y. Something like that, and then type it into my calculator. You have to just make sure that you explain, and then of course if you do substitution, tell me how you would set substitution up, and just make sure that your justification is there. If you just circle one of these and don't justify, then you're not going to get any credit. As long as you're showing us some sort of justification here, then really any one of these could be right as long as you tell me how you would set it up. And there's another one that shows up like this, so you have to make sure that you understand how each of these looks and how to set it up. So as long as you can justify it, like I said, as long as you can justify it, you should be fine. All right, number three. Number 3 says Burger Shop sells hot dogs for $3 and burgers for $5. One day the shop sold 25 more hot dogs than burgers and made $280. Write a system of equations that can be used to represent the situation. So one thing that I didn't talk about that I'll talk about now is, and it's true for the test as well, if it doesn't say solve, don't solve. Right? Math is the pursuit of laziness. So if they don't ask you to solve, don't solve. If they only ask you to solve for one variable, then only solve for that variable. Cancel out the other variable. So in this case, we're going to go and set up our first system. We're going to set up the one that is for money plus money equals total money. All right, so money plus money equals total money. You always want to make sure that you're using the same unit for your equation. So here I can go ahead and circle my monies. So we have $3, $5, and $280. You notice how each of those has a money sign. Right, so $3 for what? $3 for hot dogs, so I'm going to do 3H. $5 for burgers, so 5B. And then that equals $280. And of course I'm adding these together. So $3 for hot dogs, $5 for burgers equals $280. Right? Money, money, money. Before we get a little bit too ahead of ourselves, let's make sure that we at least label our variables. So what would H represent? What would B represent? Just really, really quickly. Also, you always want to try to do this anytime that you're writing a word problem. In this case, H represents the number of hot dogs, and B represents the number of burgers. Well, number of hot dogs sold, number of burgers sold, right? But at least something like that, set it up. Your second equation is a little weird. Second equation is going to be based off of this. It says one day the shop sold 25 more hot dogs than they did burgers. So with these problems, they're always backwards from what you think. So first of all, that 25 more, that means plus 25. So they sold 25 more hot dogs than burgers. The way that I would think about this is to figure out hot dogs, because hot dogs is more, I would have to take the number of burgers that I bought, add 25 to them, and that'll give me the total number of hot dogs that I have. So the equation down here is going to be hot dogs equals burgers plus 25. And anytime that you set up an equation like this, what I always like to do is put a little test value in there, just to make sure that it makes sense. What I mean by that is, for example, on the B, I can go ahead and plug in a value, something under 5. That would be really, really easy for me to work. You always want to work it, if you split this down the middle, you always want to put it into the side that has other stuff on it. So B plus 25. Let's put it on this side. So let's just plug in a 2 or something for B. So you plug in a 2. So off to the side I'll say B is equal to 2. Plug in a 2. 2 plus 25 gives me 27. And that means that H is equal to 27. So I have B equals 2, H equals 27. Now we just go back up with the two numbers that we just got from our equation. We go back up and check to see if this makes sense. So it says the shop sold 25 more hot dogs than they did burgers. I would agree with that statement. My hot dogs are 27, my burgers are 22, or just 2, sorry. And so the hot dogs are in fact 25 more than the burgers. So that works out. Okay, let's go ahead and flip this over to the back, work number 4. Alright, so number 4 says Cade wants to solve the system of equations 8x plus y equals 18 by using linear combination, and 16x plus 8y equals negative 8. Alright, what should he multiply the first equation by if he wants to eliminate the y terms? So the key word here is to cancel out the y terms, eliminate the y terms. And what is he doing to the first equation? So usually we could say he multiplies the top and the bottom, or he has all these different things. This time he can only mess with the first equation. So he can only multiply the first equation by something. So he can only put parentheses around the first equation. What would he multiply this equation by so that our y's cancel out? So we're only focusing on these. Okay. So what number is going to go here? Well, if we're going to change this plus y, the thing that will not change is going to be this plus 8y. That plus 8y is going to stay there. So my question now is, how do I cancel out, or how do I eliminate a plus 8y? Well, the answer to that would be the same number, 8y, but this time I would have to have a negative, right? And then if I add those together, that would create my zero pair. So now the question is, what would I multiply this by so that I get negative 8? Which, right now, let's go ahead and put in between the plus and the y, let's go ahead and put an understood 1. And if we go out over here, 1 times something needs to give me negative 8. That something needs to be negative 8. Negative 8 times 1 gives me negative 8. If I multiplied all these by negative 8, these would cancel out, and so my first answer to A is going to be negative 8. Part B says, what would he multiply the first equation by? So sort of same setup. First equation by if he wants to eliminate, this time, the x terms. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this. That's 8x plus 1y. Alright, so this time he wants to eliminate the x terms. Again, and he can only multiply the first equation by something. Alright, so once again, that means that the 16 is going to stay. To cancel out a 16, I need to multiply this by negative 16x. Alright, so I need to ask myself, what can I multiply 8 by so that I get negative 16? That answer is going to be negative 2. Negative 2 times 8 is going to give me negative 16x, and then this and this would cancel out. Of course, I can show you guys the whole distribution step. That would give me minus 2y equals negative 36. And then, once those cancel, then I would add these together and then solve for y. But, again, that step right there. The x's would cancel out. So my second answer is negative 2. Part 5. Part 5 says, an appliance store delivers large appliances using vans and trucks. When loaded, each van holds 6 appliances and each truck holds 10 appliances. If 7 full vehicles are used to deliver 54 appliances, write a system of equations that could be used to determine how many vans V and trucks T were used. Solve and show all work. Alright, so we want to set this up and then have enough space to solve it, which I might just grab a sheet of paper and solve it on a separate sheet. But let's go ahead and rewrite our write our system first. Alright, so first thing that I want to do is identify my variables. My variables that I have here are going to be V for vans and T for trucks. It's really, really nice whenever your word problem sets this up for you. That way you know what you're talking about when you look at your variables. So we have V and T. Alright, if I reread my question, it says that each van holds 6 appliances. I'm going to go ahead and circle 6 and underline the word appliances. Each truck holds 10 appliances. And then I'm going to go ahead and skip over that 7 for now, and I'm going to come over here to 54 appliances. One word that I noticed that happens over and over and over and over again is appliances, appliances, appliances. Right? 6 appliances, 10 appliances, 54 appliances. So my first equation is going to be based off of just appliances. Right? So 6 appliances, I can put V next to that because each van holds 6 appliances. So 6V. Each truck holds 10 appliances, so plus 10T. And make sure that you kind of do a little tail on your T so they don't look like plus signs. 6V plus 10T equals my total appliances, which is 54. Your equations usually are going to be part, some sort of part, plus part equals my total. Right, so 6 appliances plus 10 appliances give me my total of 54 appliances. My next equation, so this one was the appliances one. My next equation is going to be on vehicles. So I have 7 vehicles total, so that's going to be equal to 7. And then of course the 2 vehicles that I'm talking about, we looked at them earlier, are vans and trucks. So we have V plus T equals 7. Right, so that is my system. On a separate sheet of paper, I'm going to go ahead and solve. Alright, so to solve, of course there's more than one way to solve. I'm going to go ahead and use elimination. But of course, if you wanted to solve for one of the variables, get it by itself, type it into y equals, you could also do that as well. I'm going to go ahead and use elimination though. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the top alone. I'm going to multiply the bottom. Technically, there's a 1 in front of the v and there's a 1 in front of the t. Alright, I can multiply 1 times negative 6, and that's going to cancel this top equation. So I'm going to multiply the bottom by negative 6. So 1 times negative 6 is going to give me negative 6v. Negative 6 times 1t is going to give me minus 6t. And then 6 times 7, negative 7. Negative 6 times 7 is going to give me negative 42. And again, technically what I did is I flip-flopped my numbers. Technically the 1 goes up here, the 6 comes down here, and then I change the sign of the 6, making it a negative 6. But since this is a 1, if I multiply all these by 1, their value doesn't really change. So really I'm just going to bring this equation down. So really I'm just going to bring that equation down there. So this is just going to be 6v plus 10t equal to 54. And of course now it looks like I have 4 equations, so I don't need this one and I don't need that one. So I'm just going to put a line through them. Alright, and now I can go through and I can add my equations together. If I add them together, then 6v plus negative 6v plus positive 6v, these here are going to cancel. Draw my line. Negative 6 plus 10 is going to give me 4t equals, and then negative 42 plus 54 is going to give me 12. And now my last step is going to be to divide by 4. So I get that t is equal to 12 divided by 4 is going to give me 3. Alright, so I have t equals 3. Alright, from here, I'm going to go ahead and take that t equals 3. I'm going to plug it back into one of the equations. I always like to try to get the easiest one. The easiest one's going to be 1v, 1t equals 7. So I'm going to rewrite that. Let me just do v and t. v plus t equals 7. I'm going to go ahead and plug in 3 in for t. So now I have v plus 3 equals 7. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw my line. Now I'm going to solve for v, get the v by itself. So I'm going to box in the v. We have plus 3 technically, so I'm going to subtract 3. 7 minus 3 is going to give me 4. The v comes down, so we have v is equal to 4, or vans equals 4. So my final answer would be, if I kind of work down here, trucks is equal to 3, vans is equal to 4. Of course, if you wanted to do an order pair, you could, but this would be enough for me too. T equals 3, v equals 4. Alright, we'll tackle number 6 in the next problem, next video.